So apparently, college football coaches have found a loophole for the transfer portal. But don't worry, the NCAA will save us, right? Wrong.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for making our two shows your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. And a loaded show for you here on the network as we loaded. Get it? Yeah. We're going to talk. Speaking of loaded, what about the richest conferences? Which ones across college football have the most money or are willing to spend the most money? Plus some of those big spenders like Indiana and or Penn State. Some drama there around the conference. But Zach, we talk about and start today's show with some news that came out on Wednesday. Apparently, the NCAA and the Oversight Committee and whoever else is involved in making rules around here, they're in scramble mode because coaches around college football have raised their awareness about other coaches in college football finding a loophole for the transfer portal. Listen to this. They are trying to get an immediate rule put in place to prevent a player in college football and college athletics in general, rather than going in the transfer portal, since we know for football it's down to one window, and as of right now it is currently closed. They're trying to put in a rule that would prevent a player who missed the transfer portal window to drop out of school, re-enroll somewhere else, and just magically wind up on the football team. How absurd is this? Not the rule, but the idea of this whole situation.
Oh, I already know which schools love the idea of that and hate that the NCAA is trying to do something about it. Miami of Florida, LSU, Texas Tech, right? So what spring transfer portal window? Oh, well, you don't need one. You don't need a spring transfer portal window because you can just drop out of your previous school. You can change schools and enroll somewhere else. So you don't have to transfer, right? You don't have to portal, right? You can transfer, You can transfer the traditional way. You drop out of a school, you have your credits carry over to a new school, you enroll in that school, and of course you're going to get accepted. And then, you lose your scholarship. Oh no, you lose your scholarship. Doesn't matter. NIL. They will bankroll your scholarship and they will bankroll you another way with private NIL deals. So you won't get money from the collective. But again, it's so wild, wild west that you will just have a private funder just pay you an endorsement or get you to do a sponsorship or whatever commercials and what have you. You'll be compensated. You will be okay. And I mean, we got to talk about this from the Penn State, Indiana perspective. Look, I was put onto this by Brian Smith, our portal recruiting expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I said, geez, I can't imagine that this would happen to Penn State. And he's like, it very well could. I would like to think that there's all this buy-in and the culture and everything. People are committed to Curt Cignetti. The players are committed to Matt Campbell.
Dude, I didn't even think about it from that perspective. I just thought about players joining a new team. I hadn't even thought about players leaving our team to go join another team. Oh, well, that's God.
It happened. Oh. This has already happened, and it's why I threw Miami right out there immediately because, Darian Mensah. I'm not even talking about Darian Mensah. They just did this last year to Wisconsin. Yep. And what happened? Did anything happen? Or am I living under a rock? Did anything
Pretty sure they played in the national championship game, Zach.
Pretty sure they were the national championship runner-up. I saw them play against your Indiana Hoosiers. So this is a situation where, like you framed it, what is the NCAA going to do to stop it? Because there are threats out there in place by the NCAA. Ross Dellinger put them out there, reporter for Yahoo Sports. He said, hey, your coach is going to be suspended for 6 games, everything. Mm-hmm. So no practices, no activities, nothing. You were suspended for half the season. Okay, that's a big deal. You're also going to be fined 20% of your team's football revenue. Don't totally quote me on that, but it's 20% of your team's football budget. Whoa. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. So now the head coach and the school is implicated. They're not going after the player that transfers. They're going after the institutions
who encouraged the transfer.
But on what grounds? How do you sustain those rules on what grounds? Because what's happening is not illegal. From a legality standpoint, none of this is illegal. It doesn't break the law. So you are trying to levy these suspensions and these fines on what grounds? Yeah. I'm more anti-NCAA than I am, but on what grounds does the NCAA have to stop any of this? And that's kind of when I had that conversation with Brian. I'm like, I'm a lot more worried about this than I originally was. I thought, okay, have fun with that. Schools will be scared. No, they won't. No, they won't.
Yeah, the way you just laid it out scares me a little bit, because you would think, okay, oversight committee, they're supposed to meet in April. This will be fine. Spring practice will be ramped up. Everything, it'll be solved. It'll be fine. The rule will be put in place. And here we are in a world where there's a problem. The NCAA is actually involved in trying to do something about it, and they can't. They can't do anything about it. I mean, we complained so long that they didn't do anything, and now that they are, it's like, okay, well, thanks for trying, thanks for playing, but you have no power and you can't do anything. And so, man, what this is to me, Zach, is this is the start, if it hasn't started already, of players in college athletics, college football in particular, becoming professional athletes. And here's why I say that, because you talked about players losing their scholarship, losing their room and board, losing their book money. Oh, no. Does it matter?
How am I going to get my textbooks?
Yeah, how am I going to get my degree? Most of these kids aren't getting degrees anyway, and they're not going to Indiana or Penn State or Ohio State to get a degree. They're going to play football. And
some players, hey, they still do it the right way. Student,
but not the ones in this degrees. Not the ones in this scenario. Not a kid that drops out of school and re-enrolls somewhere else and just winds up on the football team as a walkout or a walk-on with $2.5 million in NIL deals. He doesn't care about his degree. He's trying to play high-level ball and go to the pros. And so this could be the biggest domino yet of us moving towards just a professional model in college football.
Did we think it was going to get any better? We
were hopeful.
I thought we were kind of at the peak of it. Like, okay, how can it get any worse? And it's just, you talk, this is why we talk to Brian. This is why we get the portal perspective. And he's like, there's going to be this shadow portal where we would like to think that Penn State and Indiana are in good enough standing to avoid this, but I still don't like this for the sport as a overall, like in general. I don't want to see Wisconsin lose a starting caliber player to Miami because they're desperate. And that's what Brian said. So let's play the scenario out briefly here before we talk about, hey, the big money spenders, Miami, LSU, right? Because these are going to be your culprits. Imagine if your starting quarterback gets hurt and your depth chart's just not that good. What's stopping a school from saying we're desperate, we need a QB?
Oh, no.
We got a hefty NIL money. We got a hefty NIL check waiting for somebody and a starting spot guaranteed. And that's quarterback. That could be any position. Hey, our running back room is a little weak. It's not as strong. We lost our starter. We lost our number one workhorse, and there's a guy that it's not even about poaching, maybe even necessarily a starter. What about a backup? So somebody that's the number 2 or 3rd option that really completes the depth chart at another program. You go get him and say, well, you can be RB number 1. That's enticing. And I don't know what you do to stop it other than trying to levy their veiled threats is what they are. And I commend the NCAA for trying and saying, hey, you have to make an example of somebody. This is what Brian said, make an example of somebody. But Indiana and Penn State, I would like to think they're immune. Here's where we're going to see it happen is through the MAC schools, the group of 6. Somebody's going to lose a key player in spring practice. And then, okay, well, Penn State's able to protect its players or at least assure some guarantees. Indiana, Ohio State, right? That's not where but we saw Wisconsin. It happened to Wisconsin, almost happened at Washington. These are still relatively big brands. They're not top 10, but top 30, top 40. It's not like it's Akron left and right, Miami of Ohio, Ball State, but it's probably going to be. I'm just saying, look, like Miami towed the line with Wisconsin. They took a player from Wisconsin and nothing happened.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. It doesn't seem to be going away. And you pair that with teams who are willing to spend 30, 40, $50 million on a roster. We're barreling down disaster in college football. We'll talk about those big money spenders and how they'll make this whole thing worse right after this on this Locked On Crossover.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Now, here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered in for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. We're talking everything. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. You might be already looking at the board and thinking, hey, which team can make a deep run? Now is the perfect time to lock it in. Futures this time of year are great. Whether you're picking a team to win a conference title or the championship itself, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Good thing is college football may not be going in the right direction, but the good thing is money's not the problem, right? Because LSU, Texas Tech, Ohio State, Indiana's fine. We're okay. We're fine.
You were on that list.
Yeah, list missed.
And Penn State wasn't. Penn State wasn't.
We were like 9th or 10th on the list, right? Of teams. It's.
You were mentioned with the group. You were mentioned with the group. It was Texas Tech. It was the On3 article, right? And they got a bunch of anonymous general managers to, dish out some information. Okay, great. So we'll take their word that they're credible sources. I know they are. I'm messing around. But Indiana was in that article. The time that Penn State was mentioned was when they said who had the most loaded portal class, and it was Penn State. But Indiana was also in that category. When they talk about the biggest spenders, you're going to get your traditional LSU, Texas Tech, Miami of Florida, right? But Indiana was in that paragraph.
But I think the difference for Indiana is the fact that we're not the top spender. We're not paying $5 million for desperate. A 1-year rental quarterback. You're right. We're not desperate. That's a good way to put it. And Indiana has done it in a staggered way, right? And kind of think of a stairwell or, a staircase. That's what Indiana has done rather than LSU, who just shoots straight up, Texas Tech straight up. You know what I mean? Because you're right. They're desperate. Man. And oil money and whatever the heck's going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but they have all this money to throw at a coach, a coaching staff, the players, and whatever the case may be. And so you start talking about going to get transfer portal players and high school recruits and coaching staff. I mean, where is all the money coming from? And then here's my
private equity. It's coming from private equity.
Yeah, but here's my concern, and the thing that I continue to bring back up that apparently the big money people just don't care about: ROI, return on investment. Will we ever see a situation where ROI is brought up by a big money person and they say, whoa, hold on. I have donated X amount of dollars to this thing. I have funded this thing and I'm not seeing jack. I'm done. I got screwed.
mean, you're seeing it in other places, right? Rutgers is an easy example because they're already kind of hurting for money and equity as it is. But they went in and they got two, and I know nobody cares about Rutgers college basketball, but that's the example. They got two top 5 prospects in the nation. They went 500, and they're like, well, enough of that. We're never doing that again. So you will see it in instances where you don't have cash to burn. When Texas Tech has money to burn, when LSU has money to burn, I think Miami's been on borrowed credit for years, right? I've heard all the rumors that their biggest donors are just they're broke, but somehow they figured out all the financial loopholes to keep funding the program.
Yeah.
That's what you're up against. And you're just seeing it more so out in the open than just some schools that are like, okay, we're going to do it and we'll risk that's the thing though. And it goes back to what we've talked about with the no spring transfer portal window and players still moving schools and stuff. Nobody's scared. Nobody's scared of the NCAA. No one's scared of, cap rules or the legitimacy of NIL deals or anything like that. And that's why we're seeing this out of control. Now, the nice thing is, thank goodness for Indiana. Thank goodness for you guys. I'm going to point the right way this time. Because you showed that you don't need to spend. Now, Indiana's starting to play. I mean, they're playing the game. It's not like, well, we put a $1 million roster together and we won on the power of friendship. No, that's not it at all. But now you're starting to play the game. Okay, we have more. You got to spend money to make money. And
yeah,
I think about how Indiana and Curt Cignetti established the foundation, and then they made it it's the Rome wasn't built in one day kind of argument. Okay,
sure.
Well, now you're investing into Rome because you see what it can be. So that's Curt Cignetti. But LSU and Texas Tech, I mean, they're going to spend a ton of money. Here's the thing that I don't like about college sports and college athletics is that those guys are always going to stay around. LSU is never going to have a down year. They're always going to be in the mix. And I don't like that because it's inorganic to the sport. There's no rebuild. It's always just a constant reload. So you can just use money as a way to basically outspend your problems, outspend your shortcomings. Oh, we can't recruit? We'll throw money at them. Oh, we can't coach very well? Well, we'll just throw money and just bully you with all the best talent as much as we can.
Isn't that what the SEC's always done, though, Zach? Isn't that what whether it was legal or not, or public or not, isn't that what the SEC has always done? And then I think of Penn State in that category, maybe not to that level right now, but I think of Penn State as a program where they've got the money, they've got the resources and the fan base, the facility, they have everything. We talked about this. Nobody has questioned that about Penn State. So maybe they are just a head coach away. LSU's been a head coach away, right? It was Les Miles,
they won a national title,
and Nick
right?
Saban, right? Yeah, but then they realized he wasn't the answer. It was the idea that they had one of the greatest rosters that's ever been put together in college football back in 2019. They fired the last guy, and now they're going to Lane Kiffin, who's never won a big game in his life. So I don't understand the LSU perspective. But for Penn State, I feel like if Indiana can do it, Penn State can do it. And if Indiana can do it in 2 years, I think Penn State can do it in less than that.
Oh, I don't know how you get closer to that. So that would be next season. Oh,
yeah,
I know it's
national championship loading 2026, right?
Yeah, that's I get what you're saying. So I appreciate that. Thank you. That does mean a lot coming from you. We're friends, not enemies here, right?
I agree.
But that's the idea. That's why Penn State made the move that it did, because you see it across the board. Spending only gets you so far, right? James Franklin. So I can speak from the Penn State perspective. He got the expensive defensive coordinator. He got to hand select the offensive coordinator. They spent money to keep all these pro caliber players from going to the NFL early or transferring out.
Yeah.
So, and Texas Tech, well, they spent and they were able to beat the Big 12, but second you played a legit team, not in your conference, hey, look at that, you lost. But that's the thing, though. You can outspend in the Big 12, and you're winning conference titles every year. You're going 11-1, 12-0. Like, that's great. I would say I win. Okay, you might fizzle out in the playoff, but Big Ten. Just think of that about that hypothetically for a moment. The Big Ten's tough, so this would never happen. But think about that in the ACC, Miami and Texas Tech, they can just outspend and they're more likely to win the conference. It's because the SEC and the Big Ten are better, right? We know the Big Ten's much better, but the SEC is still better, that you can't just do that. So But I would like conference titles every single year. So
Yeah.
When it comes to, that's the idea, is that Matt Campbell comes in, he's able to efficiently use the resources in a better capacity, like Curt Cignetti, and you will win more than you should. You will punch above your weight class, and that's all we were asking for. Just one time, just swing and hit the guy that is above you one time. Never happened.
You bring up an interesting point, and I'm going to carry this into our final segment here on this Locked On crossover. The big money spenders in college football. It's a different spin on the realignment conversation because we talk about the brands and the logos leaving, but what about the teams that spend the most? Could they go on to do something themselves and form their own professional type of league? We'll have that for you in our final segment here on this Locked On crossover.
And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, hey, that's bucket list kind of stuff. The hard part is always getting tickets. Long queues, prices jumping around, surprise fees at checkout. Not with Game Time, though. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price that you see. What you see is what you pay, period. The seat view feature, now that's a game changer. You can see a panoramic view from your exact seat before you go to buy. Truly game changing if you've never been to a stadium or a venue before. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDON. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Welcome into the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I've got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. Now, who are you taking? Because I'm going to go with a classic. And it's Tropical Burst. You have tasty caffeine with island vibes, a delicious combination of pineapple and apricot flavors, juicy, fruit-forward tropical profile, sweet with a light tang. But you also have tons of other options to choose from. Maybe you're going with strawberry banana, Hawaiian breeze, sour apple, peach mango. You get to choose what your top pick is with 5-hour energy. 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar. 5-hour energy has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. You can find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. That is 5hourenergy.com or Amazon.
We talk all the time about realignment, about the top teams in the Big Ten, the top teams in the SEC. They're going to go on and do their own thing. They're going to split off from everybody else, and I think that they probably should. But what about the teams we're talking about in this category, or the ones that were on that On3 article list? The Texas Tech, LSU, Indiana, right? The Oregons of the world, teams that are right there at the top. Of course, Indiana just broke the seal, but could those teams, Zach, in your mind, do you think they could go on and do their own thing? Because I think it's fascinating what you just talked about with Miami and Texas Tech. What if we get to a world where they're dominating their conference, they're outspending everyone else so bad that they're winning all their games against terrible teams like Duke and North Carolina and Syracuse?
Duke won the ACC title.
Right, and almost made the playoff, which is ridiculous. But could we see those teams at the top of bad conferences split off and do something else because they know they'll never get to the top by playing in those conferences? Does that question make sense?
Well, Miami would certainly want in the Big Ten, would certainly want in, because the ACC is, I think, a dying conference. I think I don't know how sustainable they are into. I think when we get into 2030, eventually we will see 2 or 3 mega conferences, and Miami. And if you don't attach yourself to one of those, right, Rutgers, Purdue, Northwestern, they're all kind of lucky. I mean, we've had this conversation kind of already where, could Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan break off, be independent, or form an alliance, and then get Notre Dame in the fold? Absolutely, they could. And from the monetary standpoint and the value that they bring to the conference, they should. I'm not endorsing that from the sake of, because I know what it would do to the Big Ten, but what's the Big Ten? What's stopping the Big Ten from trying to do that to the NCAA? Okay, the NCAA doesn't have any leverage. Okay, so when the Big Ten and the SEC say, we're done, we're going to fund ourselves, we're going to form our own super league, and then we're going to call on, and Miami immediately would jump. If you're Clemson, you don't want to get left behind because we're not one of those group of 6 schools. No, we're better than that. So Clemson would try to jump. Rutgers, Northwestern, Purdue, they would do everything in their power to try to please keep us in the Big Ten. Please.
Not happening.
We'll see. People are friends, right? It's all about who you know. Okay, so Rutgers is an institution. How'd they get in the Big Ten to begin with? Because people know people, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at as far as the existence of the NCAA, and Miami would absolutely want in the Big Ten because it means more money. I think the grant of rights deal that they have in the ACC gets them about $40 million. It's double in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
it's $80 million.
Which is money that you can spend on rosters, which is where college football is going. That's how that's what this whole show has been about, coming full circle here down the stretch, is teams are now generating money to funnel back into their rosters, right? Rather than a college football program making money for the athletic department to then funnel that into other sports. And my goodness, we don't talk about this enough, right? And for somebody like yourself who covers a non-major 3 sport, right, in wrestling at Penn State, which I know they generate their own revenue and do a fairly good job at that. But you know what I'm saying here is football is still king. It doesn't matter if it is Rutgers. Football still makes the most money at all major programs.
Football funds wrestling, right? Wrestling's not I won't go into the financial documents of Penn State wrestling.
Is it profitable at Penn State?
No.
Okay.
No sports are profitable. This is not my opinion. This is literally fact.
Yeah.
Other than football and men's basketball, nobody else is in the green.
Yeah.
Nobody's in the green.
Which is how it is at most places. Football makes money. Most men's basketball programs make money.
All of them do because of the TV networks. All of them do.
That's fair.
And the March Madness payout that they get, because Penn State men's basketball is atrocious this year. They have no attendance whatsoever, but because they get their games on Fox, they get their games on NBC, and I know there's Peacock and there's FS1. You're still getting on the major networks in some capacity, and then you get the check from the March Madness NCAA tournament just by having a team. So that money altogether is still able to fund you. Penn State wrestling, they need football and men's basketball and the grace of Penn State and the grace of outside donors, right? A lot of it is there's just people that love Penn State wrestling and they fund the program in other ways. But if it was strictly up to the university, if they were operating as a business, it's just football and men's basketball. No. Right. I think in some cases, maybe like an LSU baseball.
Yeah, I was going to say some SEC baseball might, but other than that, that's pretty much how it works. And so my point to all of that being, in the past, football generated revenue to make money, yes, but then to put money into other sports.
To fund everyone else. That was the idea.
When will we get to the point? And I know Title IX is a thing, which it is obvious and why it's there, and it's there for good reason. But when will you start to see things be skimmed off the top and some of that money start going back towards the football program? Because we're talking $40 million right now for a roster. That'll double in less than 5 years. It'll double.
You're already seeing it because, and not at Penn State, not at Indiana, but you're seeing it at other, quietly at other Division I schools where they just cut swimming and diving. They cut fencing. Right?
Wrestling's been cut at schools.
Yeah, they cut other programs because it's just like, well, I think generally $5 million. Like the costs are a lot. They're millions of dollars to operate. Penn State, I think Penn State operates at $6 million. Okay. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of in terms of university costs, but the donorship and the money that the university actually commits to it. Other programs are like, we can't afford this $2 million to spend. Penn State's the exception where they spend a ton of money. More so, they spend triple than the average program. The average program spending about $1 million, $2 million. That's a lot of money. That's not $10 or $20. That is a lot of money that can go to anything. Football, $1 million goes a long way in football.
Yeah, it does. Well, money's being thrown around all over the place, and the Big Ten is at the forefront of it per usual. But when you're winning national championships in college football, you can do whatever you want. So he is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins, the host of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. Follow us on those audio podcasting platforms as well, and drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Let us know what you think about money in college football and just the disaster that we're in right now across college athletics. So until next time, Penn State and Indiana fans, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.